Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I've got two really fun guests on. So we have Scotty Suzanne, who is the board co-chair for the Muny Conservancy, as well as Suzanne Erickson, who is the founder of She Media, as well as the organization, which is the organization that manages publicity for a wonderful organization called the Muny Conservancy. So we're going to talk about that organization today, as well as their signature fundraising event, which is Imagine Muny. And it is really a fantastic event. It's one of those events that started after the pandemic ended and has very quickly just become one of those events that really draws a wonderful crowd of people from all tentacles of the community. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today and why that is so important, especially when you're trying to do something like preservation, which is what the Muny Conservancy is about. So with that, Scotty, Suzanne, welcome. And I'm so excited to have you on as guests today.
Thank you, Rob. It's good to be back with you.
Absolutely. So Scotty, talk a little bit about the mission of the Muny Conservancy.
Well, the Muny Conservancy really is sort of a spinoff from the old Save Muny Committee that was formed in 1973. The Muny Conservancy, our mission is to save all 141 acres of Lyons Municipal Golf Course, which sits less than 2 miles from downtown Austin. And it's an amazing piece of recreational green space that's been in this city since 1924. So we're older than Zilker Park, and it has been a part of the fabric of this town since that time. And people come from all over, not just the city, but the state to play Lyons Municipal because of the history. So, to give you a quick lesson again, Rob, and I know you're aware of what we do. We sit on a piece of land, the Brackenridge Tract, which is about 345 acres remaining of the Brack Tract, that's owned by the University of Texas. The Lions Club built the course in 1924. It was the first municipal course in Austin. In 1937, they turned the lease over to the city of Austin, who has had a lease with the university since that time. And all kinds of historic things have happened on that property, whether it's uh, the integration, the peaceful integration of Lyons in 1950, really before a lot of things in Austin were desegregated. And so we've got that history. We've got a great tradition of golfers and golf at UT. The UT team, that was their home course for 35 years, Lyons Municipal. And a lot of golfers have not only gone on to great things, but a lot of youth and people that have been around Muny have gone on to great other things in life, not just golf related. So we want to save this place. It's an important part of Austin.
So talk a little bit about, the saving and why it's important and kind of what motivated you to start this organization to really kind of be the, for lack of a better term, the face of why this invaluably important green space to the city of Austin needs and must be saved.
Well, when I moved to Austin in 1962, my dad was going to work for Governor Conley, and I was good friends with one of the Conley boys, Mark. And the first place my mother took me when I was 9 years old was over to Lyons Municipal. And there were a group of guys over on the putting green, and she just kind of shoved Mark and I out of the car and said, "You go over there and make friends." Now, mind you, this was 60 plus years ago, and it was pretty scary for a couple of boys from Fort Worth to go over and jump into a bunch of guys that were already having their putting game and such and having fun. Well, Ben Crenshaw was one of those guys. So I've known Ben my whole life, and Ben grew up around Lyons Municipal, and we've made some great friends there. So this is generational. I played golf at Muny with my dad. Ben played with his dad, and we've become great friends over the years. And so, how many generations have gone through Lyons Municipal? 6 or 7 or more. And it's just an important part of Austin. And that's what motivated me. My grandkids are out there in the Austin Golf Academy from time to time taking lessons and being with their friends. So motivation's the easy part, trying to save it with a valuable piece of property that the University of Texas owns and negotiating with them. That's the difficult part. And we get along with the university. And I'm third generation UT. I just happen to believe that they need to work with us to save this piece of Austin. Austin's given back to the university and vice versa. And so this is just another generational opportunity.
I love that phrase, generational opportunity, because that's really what it is. When you think about it, gosh, over 101 years, that's probably 7, 8 generations of people that have gone through I mean, that when you put it in those terms, that's, that's meant you can't even write that many greats on on a piece of paper of, the lineage of a family doing that. That's just incredible.
Well, Rob, let me say one more thing, and we've all been watching um, the fires in Los Angeles, um, and what the people out there have lost. And a former Austin resident, J.J. Redick, is the new coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And where did he move? He moved to Pacific Palisades.
Mm.
And one of the first places that he took his kids and went was a community gathering place that had athletics available for his kids, a lot like West Austin Youth Association and a lot like Muny, just a gathering place for the community that you saw people from the neighborhood and also from all around the city. Well, they took that place a little bit for granted, he said. And with tears in his eyes, he was on TV and saying, "This place is gone,
Yeah.
and we're not ever going to get it back." So we take Muny for granted a little bit that it's going to be there forever and be a gathering place and be where we can go and see people from all over the city. Well, is that really the case? That's why we're
Yeah.
working to save it.
That that really puts it all in perspective, and I really appreciate you sharing that. And Suzanne, publicity, one of the reasons I think Muny has been so successful has just been you and your team at Shishi Media being so effective at getting the word out. But I want to hear how you initially got involved with the Muny Conservancy, because I know you've been with the Conservancy for quite a bit of time.
You know, um, I've known Scotty and Julie for a very long time. My former business partner at Weeks and Co. and Scotty were really good friends. And so I've always known the Sayers. And in fact, both of Scotty's daughters have interned for me. And so when Scotty was ramping up this effort, he reached out to me, and it was a no-brainer for me. I always like to have at least one nonprofit on my client roster because I want to give back to the community. And the Muny Conservancy has a very special place in my heart. My kids all play golf out there. My husband and I play golf out there. My son is actually on the Austin High golf team, and he's out there 3 to 4 times a week. It is just imperative that we save this beautiful piece of green space. And so it's real easy for me because I believe in the cause, I believe in the mission, and I like having that type of client on my roster because it's a great outlet for me. The young ladies that work for me also believe very strongly in the cause. And so it's just real simple for us to be a part of it. We believe in it. We love everyone we get to work with. And we just think it's one of the most important causes in Austin to save and protect all 141 acres of Muny.
That's a great answer. And I do want to say, with the materials that you always send me about the organization, I can tell it lots of press releases provide information, but yours also comes from a place of heart with a little bit of a sense of urgency mixed in. Like, I can tell it really means a lot to you as an organization. And for me, when I'm determining what organizations to support, that, the messaging is really powerful and really key. And you've always been so effective with that I can tell that, you really believe in the cause. And I also look at longevity and the fact that you have remained, with the organization for years, supporting them, as well as, being with Imagine Muny, which we'll talk about in a little bit from day one, really, really highlights that.
Well, thank you. It's an easy cause to love, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Now, Scotty, I want to get back to talking about green spaces, because the thing is that, Austin is a very different city than it was in 1924. There's a few more people here now. So talk a little bit about why it's important to preserve historic spaces and especially green spaces in an urban environment in growing cities like Austin, because Texas has a lot of growing cities. So this is something that I think a lot of cities can relate to.
Well, I don't think, Rob, that you can talk about a great city unless they do have great parks and walking trails and things for people to do, whether it's swimming, golf, just being out in the green space. I mean, can you imagine Austin without Zilker Park? Can you imagine Fort Worth without their green space there, or Dallas, or New Orleans with City Park, New York City with Central Park? Uh, it's it's incumbent on great cities to save their great spaces. I mean, it's as simple as that. It can't all be heavy density and urban development. We've got plenty of that in the city. There's proper places for that. Um, and traffic issues in this town. You know, we sort of forgot about traffic during COVID and for a couple of years after that, but it's back. And we have to be careful to keep our city livable, enjoyable. Affordable is important too. I mean, there's so many things that go into making a city great, but boy, green space is one of the important pieces of it. And that's why people gravitate to Austin. I mean, the hike and bike trail, think about that. And we're actually under golfed a little bit. 72,000 rounds at Lions last year, and we think the last counts we had was between 150 and 200,000 people visiting that site, that piece of property. Some who play golf and some who might just want to come out and drink coffee or have a beer late in the afternoon and watch the sunset.
You know, I'm glad you bring up that there's multiple uses of it because, and this is the reason green spaces I think are so important in a city is, you know, when it is something densely populated, you need a place of solace. You need a place that's easy to get to that you can re-energize and you can just kind of take in things without being kind of overwhelmed with all the stimuli that comes with living in a city. And that's really, to me, a park, a golf course, any green space. That's one of the things that makes them in particular, in particular special. And, one thing too is that, green spaces also bring community together. And I kind of want to turn a little bit to the next question, which has something to do with that a little bit. And we'll start with Suzanne on this one. But both of you are extremely active in the community. I have seen both of you at many different causes and many different things that you support over the years. So it's not like Muny is the only thing that you all support. Suzanne, talk a little bit about how your community involvement has allowed you a gateway to get other community leaders to support Muny, especially from a messaging perspective.
You're right. I've lived in Austin since 1988. I went to the University of Texas. I began my career at the Austin Chamber of Commerce, and in that role, I was able to meet a lot of leaders and a lot of influential people in Austin. And I've always felt it was important to me to keep my Rolodex fresh and to stay in touch with people throughout the longevity of my career, keep connected with people. And as I've sort of evolved in my career and I now have Shishi Media, I've always leaned on those relationships and those contacts. So it's real simple for me when I'm out and about, at various fundraisers or events around town to talk about Muny and talk about my client roster and make sure that people are aware of what's going on over there. It's just super important to me. And I think it's helpful that we do introduce the idea of saving Muny to new audiences. One of the great things about my firm is the young ladies that work for me are in a different demographic than I am. I mean, they're new to Austin. Both of them have moved here from other states, went to other colleges. They knew nothing about Muny until they got involved working with Shishi. And now they are passionate about it. And their circle of friends and their circle of influence now is very familiar and aware of what we're trying to do over there. So it's been a process of just trying to educate and trying to make sure people know our efforts, the importance of our efforts, and why they too should support this cause.
I'm really glad you brought up the importance of kind of keeping your contacts and following up, because I think some people approach nonprofits and especially nonprofit events sometimes as, well, if I have a great cause and I show up on day one, everyone's going to support it. And the fact of the matter is that there's so many great causes and most communities have lots of great causes. But if you're in the community and you're doing the work and you've been involved for a period of time, you've got credibility and you've got trust. And if you're following up, you're really showing you genuinely want to care and make that connection, so that when those things do come back around, they're going to be much more likely to listen. They're going to be much more likely to respond to your email or take your phone call, so that you can, really engage and get those people who can really help take an already great message and a great cause over the top.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, I like to spread the word about, the great causes in this town, but Muny's at the top of my list and always will be.
Absolutely. And Scotty, talk about your community involvement, because like you said at the beginning of this, you've been in Austin for a minute or two. So talk about how you've been involved with the community over the years, and how you've been able to, those relationships you've built, how you've been able to draw other community leaders to support the Muny Conservancy.
Yeah, Rob, it's interesting how I've gotten to this place in life. Fortunately, I have been business partners with Ben Crenshaw for really the last 40 years, and we grew up meeting at Muny. But my work with Ben has also given me some time to, uh, I coached over at West Austin Youth Association for 30 years. When my girls were growing up, and even my grandkids, uh, they're young now and just coming through the program. But that's been a lot of involvement, and I was on the board there. And West Austin Youth is not funded by the city; it's privately funded. So I got my first taste of fundraising there as president, and saw how their money's precious. People's money is very precious to them. And like you say, Rob, with so many causes, you can't take that for granted. And we'll talk about it later, but you got to have a good time and a good event to draw people. But I did that for so many years, and then Governor Perry appointed me to be head of the Texas State Cemetery, and that committee over there was we did the oversight on one of the most beautiful pieces of property in Austin, and certainly one of the most historic. And I did that for 12 years. Um, so those are the things that sort of brought me back to volunteer efforts. And then Muny needed some help and some new ideas. And in 2019, Ben and I said we're going to form the Muny Conservancy and try to move things along on the negotiations with the university. And unfortunately, COVID came along and slowed things down. But what it did do, Rob, is people discovered golf and being back in the outdoors, because you were closed in. You remember that? And
I do.
we were scared. We were closed in, and any chance we had to get outside, we did. And so, again, our green space and outdoors, we realized again how important that is to our health, to our city, and to our youth. I mean, you go out to Muny and you see these young kids out there mixed in with blue collar people from all over Austin, people from West Austin, people from anywhere in Travis County that come out there. They just want to be in a beautiful piece of the outdoors doing something that's fun.
And speaking
Rob,
of, oh yeah,
well,
go
I was
ahead.
going to just mention real quick, one of my favorite memories out at Muny was we were out there getting content for social media one day at lunch. And I walked around to the driving range, and there was a guy that had taken his tool belt off and he was hitting balls. I mean, obviously, someone that worked in the trades. And then he was next to a guy who was out there who had taken his suit jacket off and had his tie wrapped around his neck, kind of back behind, and he was hitting balls. And I was like, this is the best cross section of people who support Muny. I mean, it was your corporate guy, it was your trade guy, People of all walks of life are out there, and we capture that in our social media because we want people to know that Lyons Municipal is a place for all people. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what part of town you're from or what part of the state you're from. Lyons is affordable, great golf for everyone.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up, because really great events and great organizations, I think, successfully reflect, for lack of a better term, the tapestry of the community that they serve. And I love that image of, a guy taking off his tool belt and the other guy next to him, flipping the tie around. And you had mentioned social media as one of the forms of outreach, but talk about, because Imagine Muny is so successful. And I will say, in all the events I've gone to over the years, Muny probably done the best job of really bringing that full tapestry in. And that's one of the things I love so much about this cause. So talk about other means in addition to social media of how Muny, the outreach you do and how you reach out to all those different aspects of the wonderful tapestry that is Austin.
Well, we've been fortunate to, through the years, develop really tight relationships with the local media and, for that matter, statewide media. And so we do a lot of outreach to the media. We invite the media to come out to Muny and do feature stories on the course, on the green space, on the cause. And that's been a real successful part of our efforts is those relationships we have with the media because now they understand the importance of the cause and they love coming out and helping us tell that story so that we do educate more people about what we're doing. So that's been a real big effort within our publicity efforts, on top of social media. Social media has been really a great platform for us because we can tell the story in so many different ways. So that's been, part of our efforts. Our newsletter that we send out has been a great way to inform people what's going on at Muny, the tournaments happening, what's going on with special events out there, when the course might be closed for maintenance. So we have a lot of different means that we use to communicate to the community about Muny and what's going on with us.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up a newsletter because, sometimes email gets a bad rap. But the thing is that you may have someone who may not go to any event, but may want to go to Imagine Muny that's on the email newsletter list. And that may be what gets, because, people support in ways they want to support. Some people will support everything an organization does, and others will be more selective. And that's where getting a newsletter out to the audience of individuals you've collected over the years is really, is really important. And in speaking of individuals, so Scotty, you all have secured a pretty big iconic musical headliner for this year's event. So, and I loved hearing how you've maintained a relationship with this performer due to your mutual love of a certain city. So, I'd love to hear a little bit about talk a little bit about this year's headliner and what advice you would give to someone looking to have a really high profile personality headline their event.
Rob, it's interesting how we got on this path to having Wynonna Judd as our headliner this year. We have been incredibly lucky the first years of Imagine Muny to have performers like Lucas Nelson, Eric Church, Jimmy Vaughn, Lyle Lovett, who his daily walk goes through Muny every day, by the way. Larry Gatlin. I mean, you go through the list of performers that we have had. Charlie Crockett, when he was a newcomer, when he was coming up through the ranks, and we sort of introduced him to a new market of people. You have to make your fundraisers fun, and good entertainment is a big part of that. Now, Wynonna is good friends with Ray Benson, Sleep at the Wheel, who's been a supporter of ours from day one. And Ray knew Naomi Judd and when Wynonna was a baby, living here in Austin. So there's a tie there. And the other tie is that musicians are notorious for playing golf. Now, I don't know if Wynonna plays golf, but her husband Cactus, who's her drummer, and they've been married for a couple of decades, he's a avid golfer. And when we reached out and told them about our cause, and Ray helped us make the phone call, they said, "We love Austin. Sure, we'd love to come back and do your event." Uh, Winona did the rodeo last year. She taped an Austin City Limits, which is going to air in February, by the way, this month. So she taped that in November. It was off the charts good. So this year, instead of having performers come out and do just 3 or 4 songs, we're going to spend a whole evening with Winona, and she's going to perform some of her greatest hits and take us through her career, which, like you say, Rob, it's Country Music Hall of Fame, and there's very few in the business like her.
Absolutely. And what was so cool about your answer was the organization is very thoughtful with how they got to Winona. Yes, you had a relationship and you had an entree point, which is incredibly important. It's much easier than cold calling, but you also took a look to the fact that, well, musicians like to golf. And and you made the connection to Winona's husband, because a lot of times if you go through the spouse, you can actually get to the headline performer. So I like that it was almost like a triangulation, so to speak, of you had all these different entry points to motivate them to want to say yes. So it wasn't just, hey, come do my gala, it's a great cause. It's come do this and we know X, Y, and Z.
Rob, listen, I don't want to say I too many times or me, because what we have with our Muny Conservancy is a team. Whether our Shishi Media team, whether our legal team that helps us lobby UT, whether it's the young people, we have a new Muny advisory board made up of Austinites they're going to be leaders in the future, and they're under 40 years old. Beside our board of directors, we lean on all kinds of people to help us and with ideas, and like Ray Benson, who's on our board, had the connection with Winona and helped bring her in. But our team of I won't say youth, but it's generational. Again, the generation below me, um, matched up with Suzanne's team, and the ladies that work for Suzanne do such a good job of keeping people informed and keeping people aware of where we stand. It all comes together when you have to plan a big event like this.
Absolutely. And, planning a big event and making it fun throughout the evening, is a really challenging thing. And you all really do a really good job with that. I actually want to direct this next question to Suzanne. So, I don't want to say it is easy to make a cocktail hour fun, but it's certainly, on a scale of 1 to 10, that's probably a seven, whereas making it fun during the program can be a 9 or a 10 sometimes. And what I have always appreciated about any event you've ever done, Suzanne, is you are extremely thoughtful with where every single person in that room sits. And I've gone every single year to Muny. I have never once not been at a table that was reflected a tapestry. It was a wide range of people. Everyone had fun and everyone was having a good time. And that's a really, really fantastic skill that I think you just do an incredible job with. So talk a little bit about how creating a fun environment for guests allows the event to be more successful and, for donors to give more.
We like to say we want our events to be memorable. In the first year, we were talking about like the very first entry point to the event, doing a red carpet. And we were like, why do a red carpet when you can do a green carpet? We're trying to save our green space. So, getting creative with those kinds of things, having activations within the cocktail hour and within the venue space, whether it be a hat bar, whether it be, selling merch, whether it be, some sort of fun, interactive putting activation, things of that nature. We like to put things into our planning that give people things to do once they're there. So that it's more than just to stand around with a cocktail before you enter the venue, but there's actually things to do that are interesting. We're very methodical in the imagery we have up at ACL Live at the Moody. There's all sorts of video boards, and we want to be able to tell the story of Muny from a visual standpoint. So all of that historic imagery, we have up on the video screen so that people can see old pictures and new pictures and kind of a cross section of who comes out to Muny for anyone that may have not been out there or maybe doesn't go out there on the regular. So we're just very methodical in our team planning to make sure that when people leave our event, it's memorable and that they want to come back the following year.
Absolutely.
Rob,
And
can I add something to that?
absolutely.
The fine line between a night of fundraising and a night of fun, that's a hard one, is to mix those things. You don't want to, in a 4 hour event from cocktails to the end of the night, you don't want to have 3 hours of fundraising. Everybody knows why they're there. And so you're going to get your message across. You're going to have your time of the night for gathering, meeting old friends, have your cocktails, then you're going to have your fundraising, then you're going to have your entertainment. But boy, I mean, you have to be efficient with your time and make it fun and not tedious. And you've been to events that were fun, and you've been to events that raised a lot of money that were a little more tedious to go to. So, boy, anytime you can give your input, we appreciate it. On what we could do better. We're always trying to listen, but it is a fine line.
Absolutely, it is. Now, talk a little bit about what you're looking forward to and what guests can expect to experience when they walk into Imagine Muny this year.
Well, we think we have it at the best venue in town for music. The sound is great down there. It's a good I won't say it's a smaller venue, but it holds 2,500 people, so it's not giant like the Mood over on UT campus. It is, and there's a place for that, and there's a place for ACL Live, but we think we're in the perfect venue for the event. So we start out with cocktails, and we're very blessed to have celebrities, again, that play golf, whether it's a Luke Wilson, a Kyle Chandler, a Ray Benson. Um, Dennis Quaid plays golf, and he married a girl from Austin. Um, Larry Gala, and you go down the line, and there are so many Austinites that feel a kinship to Muny, and some of them, and I love it, some of them happen to be entertainers, and that puts a little sizzle into your event when you see them walking around, whether they're young entertainers like a Charlie Crockett or an icon like a Vern Lundquist or Ben Crenshaw, who's our co-chair, or Sergio Garcia, who's a big part of fundraising in Austin. That adds a lot of sizzle to the night, quite honestly, and you pair that with entertainment, and then the fundraising part sort of falls into place if you message right.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned, it doesn't need to be the whole night. If you're succinct and purposeful with it, it's like you take care of business for a moment. Think of it like a long toast. Like that's essentially what it is. When you do that appeal, it's a little bit of a long toast, and then you kind of get to go back to having fun. And Suzanne, tell me what you're looking forward to with this year's gala, and maybe some interesting things you think guests can expect or look forward to.
Well, we're blessed this year to have the support of Kendra Scott. She has just recently launched her new Yellow Rose Western wear brand, and we're going to have a pop-up at our event this year where she's going to be doing a hat bar and have various things for guests to purchase in that sort of Western vibe. So we're really excited about that this year. The other thing that we're doing different this year is we're going more with a red hot theme this year. So instead of, I think in past years, we've encouraged people to wear their green to show support of Muny. But in support of Winona this year, we're going all red. So that's going to be a little fun detail that we're putting into play this year for the event.
Hey,
So
Suzanne, I just want to tell you that I'm not wearing red, except I may wear a red bow tie with my cowboy formal look. The
I
men, the
think
men, the men may have a touch of red, but the men are certainly welcome to wear black
and,
or
and
green.
and here's what I'll say with a color. A nod is all you need. And that's
Mm.
kind of what I've learned, especially if it's not a color you're comfortable in or is not the color you would normally wear. A nod, a good guest will do a nod and a recognition. If they know it's not them, someone who hosts a party is like, okay, that may not be their color, but they thought enough about me to incorporate it in some small way.
You bet.
Well said. Well said, Rob. That's it. Just a touch of red for the men will be appropriate, and the women can go all out. I can't wait to see.
Because there will be a red sport coat or two in that crowd, Scotty.
I
Now,
hope
come
so.
on.
I hope so.
I could totally see Larry Gatlin doing that like yesterday. I think that.
I see Ray Benson doing that. What do
Oh
you
gosh, for sure.
and all 6'7", of his height, him in full red. But Rob,
I
you and
mean,
Lance always look so fabulous at every event.
thank you.
So
You're too kind. Well, you all make it easy to kind of know what to wear and know what to dress out. And each year you've kind of done a slightly different theme with the attire. So we always kind of look forward to it because we always kind of get to mix it up, just a little bit, but it still feels like
mhm.
Imagine Muny. And I know we're coming up on time here, and I always like to end with this one question. So we'll start with Suzanne and then one with Scotty, and that is, what is one thing all successful events have in common?
I think a sense of community. I like going to an event and not seeing the same people at every single event. I feel like, especially as it relates to Imagine Muni, it's such a cross section of the community. We'll have kids there from the Austin High golf team. We'll have neighborhood advocates. We'll have golfers. We'll have, elected officials. We're in legislative session right now. And so you'll see a lot more, legislative types at our event this year. So I really like I like having an event where it doesn't feel stale. It feels fresh, and we have so many new people that have moved to Austin in the last decade. It's nice seeing people there and meeting people that you don't know. So I think a sense of community is for me what makes an event great.
Great answer, and a really good point on it's always fun to go to an event, and Muni's one of those for me where you never know who you're going to run into, and you're never completely surprised because sometimes you see someone you're like, why are you here? Your event is not that. I never know who I'm going to expect to see, and it's always great to see someone new. And Scotty, what about you?
Well, Suzanne sort of took my word community, but purpose, I think, is important. I mean, I would say fun, but you've got to have a purpose for your fundraiser that draws your clientele and people from around the community to know what you're trying to do. And obviously, we're trying to save a 100-year-old piece of green space. We're trying to raise money so that we start the second 100 years in a good way with improvements over there and make it look like we're going to be there for another 100 years, which is our purpose. So that's sort of about our fundraiser, but we are looking so forward to this year. And you get tickets at acllive.com to go to the event. We've got some great sponsors that have come through for our purpose, Rob, and especially you and Lance have helped us so much get the word out. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, mic drop. And I want to add one thing to what Scotty said. And the beautiful thing about ACL Live is that if you go to the gala and you stay for dinner, you're there for dinner, you sit on the floor. But because you have the added capacity, you can actually purchase a ticket and just go to the concert. If you just want to hear a great show with a legendary artist, you can do that and give back to your community. So that's what I love about ACL in particular is there's multiple ways to be involved in the event in a way that works for you. And that's what's just so amazing and magical about Imagine Muny and what you all do at ACL with ACL Live as your event partner from day one.
Yeah, let me say this, Rob. We have sponsors that are fortunate to be able to open up their pocketbooks in a big way, but we have mezzanine seats that are reasonable, and we have balcony seats for a chance to come in and see Winona, very reasonable. And again, there's not a bad seat in the house at ACL Live.
There is absolutely not. And anyone who's not in Austin, make Imagine Muny or any visit to Austin, make it complete by going to visit ACL Live and hopefully Imagine Muny. So, I cannot thank you both. Cheers. First of all, cheers to the next 100 years. And secondly, Scotty, Suzanne, I had a blast chatting with you both today. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us. And don't forget, follow us on social media for the latest and greatest on what's happening at Muny.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
And
thank you, Rob. Anytime we can help you out, let us know, and we look forward to seeing you again this year.
can't wait to be there. And the Imagine Muny Gala benefiting the Muny Conservancy will be held on February 28th, 2025 at ACL Live in Austin, Texas. For more information, visit themuniconservancy.com. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.